So we're looking at question 5 of the Edexcel 2017 C1 paper. And question 5 tells us that f of x is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 19. And part A of the question tells us to express f of x in the form of x plus a all squared plus b, where a and b are constants. This is a method known as completing the square. So in order to do this, we can multiply out the form that they want the function to be put into. So we have f of x is equal to x plus a squared plus b. If we multiply out the brackets here, we get x squared plus 2ax plus a squared plus b. We can now compare this to what we know the function really is. So we have f of x is equal to x squared plus 2ax plus a squared plus b. We also have f of x is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 19. And we can now compare the coefficients of our powers of x. So for the power of x to the 1, we have 2a must be equal to minus 8. So 2a equals minus 8. A must be equal to minus 4. And now we can compare the powers of x to the 0. We have a squared plus b must be equal to 19. So a squared plus b equals 19. We know that a is minus 4, and minus 4 squared is 16, plus b is equal to 19. We know that then b must be equal to 3. So we can now sub in our values for a and b into our function. We have f of x is equal to x minus 4 squared plus 3. Now, if you wanted to check this answer, you can multiply that out for yourself, and you should get that f of x is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 19. So for the next part of the question, we're told that the curve C with the equation y is equal to our f of x crosses the y-axis at the point P and has a minimum at the point Q. And we're told to sketch the graph of C showing the coordinates of point P and the coordinates of point Q. So before we can sketch this graph, we need to work out the coordinates of point P and Q. And the point P is the part where it crosses the y-axis. And so that is the point where x is equal to 0. So for point P, we know immediately that x is equal to 0. We just need to work out what the y is there. So if we sub in x is equal to 0 into this equation, we will have y is equal to minus 4 squared plus 3. Minus 4 squared is 16 plus 3 is 19. So our point P is 0, 19. For our point Q, we want our function to be a minimum. So in order to do that, this bracket here should be 0. And that happens when x is equal to 4, because 4 minus 4 is 0. So we know that our x value will be 4. In order to work out our y value, we know that y will be equal to, this bracket here is 0 now, so y is equal to 0 plus 3, which is 3. So we've now able to sketch this graph. So we have our axes here, labeled y and x. We have our quadratic as a minimum at 0.43. So we know it's going to be somewhere up here. Let's just draw it like this. Oh, the minimum's actually about there. So let's try this. That'll do. This point here is our minimum. This is 4, 3. This point here is the point where it crosses the y-axis. And this is 0, 19. So for the final part of the question, we're told to find the distance PQ, writing our answer as a simplified third. So in order to do this, we know that our distance squared must be equal to our change in x squared, is 4 squared, plus our change in y squared is 16 squared. So to do this, we can note that 16 squared is equal to 4 squared squared. Because 4 squared is 16, and then it goes back to that, which is equal to 4 squared times by 4 squared. So we can sub this in to our formula down here. We have d squared is equal to 4 squared plus 4 squared times by 4 squared. And we can factor out 4 squared here. So d squared is equal to 4 squared into, if we factor out 4 squared from that, we get 1, plus factor out 4 squared from here, we get 4 squared, which is equal to 16 into 17. And remember, this is equal to d squared. So in order to work out d, we need to take the square root of this. Square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of 17 doesn't do anything, it's just square root of 17. And that's our final answer.